Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Well, yesterday we launched into the second part of Psalm 74. I hope that you enjoyed the beginning because we're going to continue with this same idea that God is working salvation in the midst of the earth. He is king over all things. He is king over his people. And because he's working salvation in the midst of the earth, look what he did for Israel. He divided the Red Sea. He broke the heads of the dragons in the waters. He cleaved the fountain in the flood. He dried up mighty rivers. All of that for his people. So God has done a work in the midst of the earth to bring salvation to his people. Now, today we're going to look at 16 and 17, and I want you to mark the change here. Verse 16, let me read these for us. The day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Thou hast set all the borders of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. All right, so we start with, in this testimony about God's work, his salvific work in the midst of the earth, what he's doing for his people. We've done 13, 14, 15. God is working for his people. And I failed to mention yesterday there in verse 15, the cleaving the fountain and the flood, that rock that followed them around, the apostles tell us, was Christ. So we have Christ caring for his people. He's present here in the saving work of God. Of course he would be. And now look, we have this refrain referring to the creative work of God. The day is thine, the night also is thine. God owns it. He's prepared the light and the sun. He made them. You've set all the borders of the earth. The way the world is laid out, that's his design. You've made summer and winter. So, he gets down to the nitty-gritty here, doesn't he? Day, night, light, sun, the borders of the earth, summer and winter. God's done all of that. So here we are talking about the creative work of God. So not only is he king over his people and able to do a saving work for his people, but he's also the creator of all things. So all of this is in his hands. We'll go back to verse 12 again. But God is my king of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. How can he do that? Well, because it's all his. He owns it. He controls it. You see, the refrain referring to the creative work of God gets down to the very details of Genesis chapter 1. The daytime is yours, the night also is yours. One of the very first things we find in the created order is day and night. God divides the light from the dark. He prepared the light and the sun. So we have the light made and the sun made there in Genesis chapter 1. All the borders of the earth. And the Bible tells us that God told the water, he gave a command to the water, you cannot pass this boundary. And he made summer and winter. So all the seasons, God made them. He made the stars in the heaven, which tell us about seasons. He's made all of it. So when we think about God being our king forever, of old, and working salvation in the midst of the earth, we can say that confidently because he has made all things. All of this is in his hand. So let's put it into the perspective now of the psalmist who's standing there in the parking lot with Jerusalem smoking ruins behind him. God is doing a work. Even though I can't see it at the moment, even though there's a smoking ruin behind me, I know that he is working salvation in the midst of the earth, and all of this is a part of his plan to do this work, and it's all under his control. So I can trust him no matter what. Doesn't matter how situations change, how circumstances change, none of that matters, because God has worked in the past, and he's going to work in the present, and he's going to work in the future. And he's doing it to glorify himself and to save those men whom he has elected. So God is doing his work. He's making his way in the world and providing for all. So there's no question about that at all. From the psalmist's perspective, I'm sure there are plenty of people who doubt that, but that's what the psalmist is trying to get across, is that God is in charge even when my world seems like it's spinning out of control. All right, so join me tomorrow. We're going to look at verses 18 and 19 here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.